There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The top business stories live from the Sky Newsroom. A long and difficult path. The Prime Minister warns that there are no shortcuts to fixing the economy ahead of Wednesday's budgets. Thrown under the bus, a backlash as the government announces plans to increase the cap on fares. Also today, a dramatic drop in the oil price as Israel's strike on Iran avoids energy facilities. Plus, why a US fashion giant is investing in the UK high streets. Very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. Thank you for your company on this Monday. Well, ahead of his government's long-awaited first budget on Wednesday, Sir Keir Starmer has been laying the ground for possible tax rises. In a speech in the West Midlands, the Prime Minister said the budget would be another step on the long, difficult path to change Britain. He said the budget would include £240 million to help people back into work. But for those trying to work out, not such good news, with the bus fare cap rising from £2 to £3. Well, let's bring in our business and economics correspondent, Gurpreet Narwan, who joins us down the live in central London. You know what? Today was a lot about politics, wasn't it, rather than economics. Very much the Prime Minister pitch rolling ahead of Wednesday's budgets.
Yeah, he's been doing this before. He did it again today, once again priming the public for significant tax rises in the budget this week, a figure that could reach easily somewhere in the region of about 35 or 40 billion pounds if the Chancellor wants to avoid a deterioration in public services, which would make this week's budget one of the biggest tax rising budgets in history, made more significant by the fact that the tax burden is already at a generational high, partly because of that policy of fiscal drag, whereby people are being dragged into higher rates of income tax because the thresholds have been frozen, a policy that was introduced by the Conservatives, but one that Labour is unlikely to reverse. And crucially, Starmer didn't rule out further tax rises in subsequent budgets down the line. But the Chancellor is facing a dilemma here because the public expect a significant improvement in public services, but Labour has already ruled out 3 tax rises on working people: income tax, national insurance and VAT. So the Chancellor's room for manoeuvre here is limited, and even more limited because of her fiscal rules, which prevent her from increasing borrowing in order to fund day-to-day spending. And that's why we heard from Keir Starmer today about tough choices on things like the bus cap fare, which is going to be raised to £3. And he also spoke about the harsh fiscal reality, essentially that people should be prepared to pay more tax if they want improved public services and to prevent a return from austerity. And then in the long term, there's this sort of faint hope that's being offered to us, a vision of hope, which is that faster economic growth may reduce the burden on taxpayers in the future. But the problem is, and the risk is for the government, that the public may not have the patience for all of that.
OK, Gurpreet, thank you very much indeed for that. And of course, the budget taking place on Wednesday. We'll have full coverage on Sky. We're just going to pause for a second from the business news, bring you some US politics news, because President Joe Biden is voting, or has voted, in the United States, in his home state of Delaware. I don't think we probably need to guess who he's voting for, but President Biden getting ahead of election day itself, which of course is next Tuesday. Americans can often vote, can't they, ahead of time, and it really varies state to state. But President Biden has been voting in Delaware. Let's have a listen in to what he has to say.
Saying a bunch of stuff about immigrants.
It's simply embarrassing. It's beneath any president, but that's but we're getting used to it. That's why this election is so important. You know, most of the presidential scholars I've spoken to talk about the single most consequential thing about a president's character. Character. And he puts that in question every time he opens his mouth.
Mr. President, he proposed a ceasefire, 2-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. What do you think about it?
My staff is talking to them right now. I'm going to get out here, get in a secure line, and follow up on that. We need a ceasefire. We should end this war. It should end, it should end, it should end.
Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed that negotiation under fire is better than negotiation during ceasefire. What do you think about that?
I'll reserve that for my discussion with him.
Mr. President, can you talk a little bit? Are we going to see you with Vice President Harris? But also, do you wish more candidates like Lisa Rochester were using you as a surrogate?
Well, I've done a lot of surrogate stuff, and the fact of the matter is that I've also had to be president at the same time. So I've been in all the battleground states. I've been campaigning, but I also have to continue my job as president.
Will you be on the trail with the Vice President this week, sir?
I've been on the trail. We talk all the time, and they're asking me to where they think I should be to help them the most. I'm going to be in Pennsylvania, going to head to Scranton and a few other places.
Heard about North Korea? 10,000 troops now?
Yeah. And you got, it's very dangerous. Very dangerous. And the idea that Kamala's opponent is talking to Putin and discussing what should be done. I mean, anyway, I'm not.
Sir, Elon Musk is handing out checks to unregistered voters to register.
$1 million.
Do you think that's legal conduct? Do you think that's election interference?
I think it's totally inappropriate.
How about these?
There you go. That was President Biden speaking just a short while ago in Delaware, where he's cast his vote in the US election. Of course, we saw that big rally, didn't we, with Donald Trump in New York last night. Americans, many of them have already voted, but millions more will do, of course, on Election Day next Tuesday. Just one other note there and one other question about North Korea, with President Biden saying that North Korean troops who are now aiding Russia was indeed a very dangerous step. And we'll have more on that on the News Hour, of course, with Mark Austin at 5 o'clock. But let's return to business, return to the budget back here in the UK, and let's speak to James Smith. He is developed markets economist for ING and joins us down the line. Let's pick up with our previous discussion there about Keir Starmer's speech today and kind of focusing on the politics of the budget coming up, because it is clear that Labour are concerned not to repeat the mistakes of the Liz Truss budget, in the sense that they are preparing lots of the ground so the markets do not have any surprises.
Yeah, I think that's it. And that's why this speech is really focusing on, tying improved public services, or the need to improve public services, with a need to raise taxes. And that's, a comment definitely aimed, amongst other people, at the financial markets. I mean, look, the government has a choice. The previous government, the way of balancing the books, baked in big cuts or real terms cuts to public spending over the next few years. I think lots of economists are agreed that that wasn't going to be sustainable. So it was always likely that day-to-day spending is going to need to rise under the new government. But it was a question of how much and how that's going to be funded. And clearly we're getting some signs of that both today and on Wednesday.
Indeed, and let's talk, James, if we can, about buses. Millions of people use them every day. The Conservative Party had effectively brought in a cap and lots of different fares around the country. And it now looks that's going to come to an end.
It does, that's right. Yeah, the fare cap going up from £2 to £3 next year. I mean, looking at it from an economics point of view, putting the politics to one side, I suppose it plays into that wider idea of people paying more money, more taxes, more money on public services more generally. I think the specific impact on the economy of this one policy is probably pretty limited. Clearly affects some people specifically quite heavily, but on the economy level, it's probably quite limited. Just to give you a sense, road transport, which includes buses, is about 1% of the UK inflation basket of what we spend. So the impact's probably not going to be huge on the macro level. But yeah, clearly having a bigger impact on some people.
Isn't that the point, though? kind of come back to the politics again because they're so interwoven, is that, the Labour Party went into the election saying they're not going to raise taxes on working people. Now, clearly a bus fare cap is not a tax, but in the end could mean millions of working people having to pay more money every week.
Well, I think it goes to the point that Labour ruled out these big tax changes, the income tax or national insurance. So the only options left are things like employers' national insurance, which looks like it's going to raise the lion's share of the money this week, or looking at lots of small changes across minor taxes. That's why we're hearing about things like capital gains tax, inheritance tax potentially, but also things like bus fares and lots of other things, I'm sure. Lots of small changes which the government will be hoping add up to a big increase in revenue.
And just very finally, James, we're also told not to expect rabbits, not physical rabbits, of course, but any surprises in the budget. Again, how much is this about trying to manage expectations from those in the city and elsewhere?
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think a lot of it comes back to, we talked about day-to-day spending, we talked about tax. A lot of it comes back to investment as well. That's clearly going to be a big theme on Wednesday. What investors really care about in the city is how much that investment goes up, and more importantly, how much the equivalent borrowing goes up as well. I think that's what investors are really looking at. And maybe, who knows, maybe that's where the rabbits come from.
James, we will wait and find out. Thank you very much indeed. That's James Smith there, the developed markets economist for ING. And also, don't forget, we'll have full coverage of the budget from 10 a.m. on Wednesday here on Sky. Now, while many companies are moving away from bricks and mortar, the US fashion giant Vuori is about to open a new flagship store on London's Regent Street. The California-based athletic leisure company has grown to more than $4 billion in less than 10 years and says that the new store is designed to be as much a community hub as it is a retail space. Well, joining me now from the new Regent Street store is Joe Kudla, who is the founder and chief executive. Joe, very good afternoon to you. I was just saying there, wasn't it, about bricks and mortar. We've seen an awful lot of retail move online, and you guys are going in the opposite direction.
That's true. Yeah, we're here in London to celebrate the opening of our 5th store overseas. We have approximately 70 stores in the US. It's been a busy year of growth, and vertical retail has been leading the way.
Why do you feel the need to essentially have these physical stores that, as you say, people might not necessarily come even to buy something, just to experience it?
Yeah, I think for the same reason that Vuori has been successful in a competitive space. At Vuori, it's all about product, and at the heart of that is textiles. Vuori is famous for fabric. We've innovated and brought some very compelling fabrics to market, and you can't really understand it until you come into one of our stores and you feel it and touch it. And so, in addition to introducing our customers to a wide array of products that they can try on and feel and touch, and get that incredible service that Vuori is known for, our stores also offer us an opportunity to create community hubs for our teams to get out into market, to understand what is important to the market. How can we build authentic kind of programming that adds values to the communities we serve? And so our stores operate as much as community hubs as they do as retail destinations.
So let's talk about London. I think this is your 2nd store here. Question is, why London?
London's one of the largest fashion capitals of the world. We share a lot of values with the UK. People live active, healthy lifestyles. There's, health and wellness trends towards casualization. But it's really a gateway to Europe. We have aspirations to build a global business. We've been very focused on the United States. 2 years ago, we opened our first store here in Covent Garden. We started building community. We've gotten a great response. We've seen awareness build since we opened that first store, and we feel confident and ready for our 2nd store. So we're really excited. I think Regent Street gets somewhat close to 70 million visitors per year. 40% of those are folks that don't live in the UK. So it's a gateway to the rest of the world. So we're thrilled to be here.
In saying that, I'm sure you're aware we're going to have a pretty significant budget in a couple of days' time here in the UK. There's lots of questions about tax going up, particularly for employers like yourself. Is the possibility of tax increases and potentially changes to other forms of taxation still make the UK a desirable place to invest, or do you think it could be problematic in the months and years to come?
Yeah, we're aware that there could be some changes coming. However, we're so early in our journey, we remain very bullish on the state of the consumer and introducing the Vuori brand to a lot of new people. So yeah, staying focused on what we can control, which is making great product and providing great service.
And are you optimistic about retail and the high street? Because again, it's something that we've come back to time and time again on this program, but elsewhere. That, you know, the death of the high street is talked about a hell of a lot. This idea that businesses are either moving online exclusively or to retail parks outside of city centres. But you seem to think that at least in London, there is still a future.
Absolutely. And I would say across the world, we still believe very strongly in vertical retail. You know, early, when we started on this journey in 2015, you could reach a broad audience at an advantageous price via advertising on social media and other channels. You know, in today's world, in such a digital world, the novelty is providing a world-class experience in the physical world. And that's something that we do very well. And so our store experience is very unique, and we're going to continue to bet on our product and our service. And providing that in the physical world, in addition to complementing, you know, the strategies that we'll continue to invest in digitally.
Okay, and just very finally, Joe, while we've got you, I don't know whether you also saw, we were just remarking on the fact that Joe Biden has voted in the US election. Obviously, it's a big week in the United States next week. If Donald Trump wins the presidency, there's possibility of large tariffs on goods ebbing and flowing from the United States. Are you concerned about the impacts that those protectionist measures, if you like, may well have on your businesses and others?
Yeah, I mean, we can't predict the outcome of the election. We'll learn soon enough, but we're going to take it one day at a time and stay focused on the things that we can control, which is making great differentiated product and providing a really great experience. And we believe that if we do that, the future looks bright.
Okay, good luck with it all. Joe Kudla there joining us from Regent Street. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. You're watching Sky News, you're watching Business Live. We're back in a couple of minutes with the latest on the markets. The FTSE up a little today. We'll explain it all just after this quick commercial break.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
Enormous explosion that's just come down. I think it was a monster just landed in between us.
Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States. It's a border where they're not welcome, and yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks and taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
There's been an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change.
We're being crushed. Free from wherever you get your news. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine. The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world. Sky News, the full story first.
Hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win. Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win. Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
You want to talk business? Meet me in the On-Board Lounge. Fly Emirates, fly better.
Right, let's have a look at the markets this Monday afternoon. And the European indices have traded higher as investors review the geopolitical situation in the Middle East. You can see all up against the board there. Shares of the Dutch medical devices giant Philips, though, were down over 16% after the company said it was cutting its sales outlook due to weak Chinese demand. Pretty significant fall there for Philips. Here in London, the FTSE finished up just under 0.5%, despite a choppy session for the oil giants BP and Shell following that steep fall in oil. The leading gainer today has been Melrose Industries, which finished up nearly 10% after providing an update on its revenue and risk partnerships. Meanwhile, EasyJet has enjoyed a bounce following those declining oil prices. It's up nearly 3% there. On Wall Street, the markets are waiting for 5 of the so-called Magnificent 7 tech stocks, which are due to report this week, companies such as Apple and Microsoft. On the currency markets, the pound is up against the dollar and the euro. And finally, as we've been saying, oil prices, they've dropped pretty significantly, down about 5.5% after Iranian media described Israel's strike over the weekend as causing limited damage and the prospect of a wider war dampening down. Let's bring in Anna Macdonald, investment manager at Aubrey Capital Management. Anna, very good afternoon to you. Let's start with oil. Its decline has had a big impact on lots of different company shares today.
Yes, so we can see that the big oil companies in the UK, such as BP and Shell, are down about 1.5%. And the ones that benefit from lower oil prices, like EasyJet and Ryanair, have done well. I think this is a short-term impact. I mean, it's really the long-term supply-demand game that we need to think about when we see what's going to happen next to oil.
And Anna, talk to me about Philips if you can. I mean, down 16% today. What's gone on there?
It is a big drop, isn't it, for a company that I think is valued well into the $25 billion or so. Now, they've brought down their annual growth expectation from 5% to 0.5 to 1.5%. And they're saying that's all due to China, which just shows you how weak China must be. It makes up about 13 to 15% of Philips sales. They've been in China for 100 years. What they're seeing is a slowdown both in the personal care equipment that they sell in China, as well as what they're finding in an anti-corruption drive, which is slowing down sourcing by Chinese hospitals for some of their hospital products.
Yeah, it's fascinating, the wider impact that stimulus package or the lack of how it's been received is having an impact on the global economy. Let's focus, though, on the US, and if we can, the Magnificent Seven this week reporting their earnings, well, 5 of them at least. Just tell us who they are.
Right, so we've got, we had Tesla last week. Some people don't really think of them as so much as the Magnificent Seven because they still haven't regained that share price they hit in 2021, despite that massive bounce they saw after their numbers on Thursday last week. They saw a 20% bounce. The ones reporting this week, Alphabet, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and Apple, and not NVIDIA yet. And NVIDIA is the real poster child of the Magnificent Seven. It's the one that really has seen that acceleration in share price and earnings growth this year.
So which ones, Anna, do you reckon we should be watching out for? Where do you think the biggest surprise is going to come from?
Well, I mean, as I said, Tesla was a surprise to the market, hitting the targets that Elon Musk had set out, and actually he put out some more pretty bullish ones for next year. I think that NVIDIA, Apple, and Meta, they're the ones with pretty high expectations. They're the ones that continue to set new price rises. So they're possibly the ones that investors are going to focus on the most. Microsoft has been a little bit more subdued. What we might see ahead of the election, though, or after the election, I mean, is that we have seen quite a lot of talk from the Democrats about breaking up big tech, trying to reduce some of their influence. I think a Trump win probably implies less regulatory interference. So that, coupled with some good earnings numbers this week, might see us continue to see these Mag 7 perform as well as they have been doing.
OK, Anna, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Anna Macdonald, the investment manager at Aubrey Capital Management, joining us down the line from a dark Edinburgh, but it is that time of the year. Anna, thank you.
It is rather dark. Thank you.
Indeed. OK, that is it from me on Business Live for today. Of course, I'm back at 11:30 and 4:30 tomorrow. Up next, it's Mark Austin with the News Hour, with the latest on the Manchester United manager resigning and on the budget. Stay tuned for that. But I'll see you tomorrow at 11:30. Have a good afternoon.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.